Well, we're back. We're back. And, I'm doing this last bit of the chapter to be done and over with by myself. Am I ready for this? I don't know if I'm ready for this. Alright. Let's do it. Nearly a week had passed since Nagakura secluded himself following his humiliating interaction with the demon Amagiri. He emerged from the forest, stumbling upon a decrepit hut in the base of the mountain range, and became a hermit in a cold, isolated slice of land. Our boy isn't taking this too good. More often than not, he found refuge in his lonesome bedroom, shoving his heart away from the world. He became devoid of confidence, hoping that he could ignore the deafening sound of his internal guilt. Why did I say entrail? By normal standards, it was nothing more than a prison sentence. To Nagakura, however, it was a chance to numb himself until he eventually turned to dust. Each day, I traversed through the forest to procure supplies, like food and utensils, from a nearby village. It was the only way I could keep Nagakura alive. Nagakura, I've made you some dinner. That was a sound effect. Nagakura refused to answer, but I could hear his stomach grumble from the other room. He was in a cycle of self-deprecation, both triggered and exacerbated by his hunger. Your choice not to return to the corpse is one thing, but the least you could do is feed yourself. Hold on. I think there's a fly in my room and it's climbing up my wall. I think. Hold on. I can kill it with something. Never mind. It's going up way too high. It's just gonna live in my wall. Oh, it flew away. Alright. Nagakura carefully grabbed the sides of the hot steaming bowl of porridge I had set on the table. He reluctantly put the bowl to his lips and sipped. His eyes widened, struck with a sudden realization. You handed me a pouch of coins and asked me to take care of it, remember? Can we hug him again? Seeming pleased with himself, he resumed eating. What did he expect? What did he expect us to do when the money ran out? Was he assuming we would simply live off the land? I wondered if Nagakura was experienced in living a humble, sedentary lifestyle. Sedentary? If that were the case, if somehow he could adapt to these adverse conditions, it would be okay. The biggest dilemma to me was deciding how long it would take for Nagakura to get over his slump. Even if he was to piece together the bits of his broken heart, how would he find our friends? How would we find our friends, our allies? As I succumbed to a bevy of anxious thoughts, Nagakura slurped the last bit of his porridge, licking his lips with satisfaction. I stared at him with a furrowed brow, and our eyes suddenly met, albeit rather awkwardly. There was reason for him to point out my silence, but I felt it better not to make any needless comments. Well, if I were in a similar position to yours, I don't think I would want anyone to nag me either. More importantly, I wanted him to know. The guide says, "You saved me." You saved me, Nagakura. So this time, I am taking it upon myself to save you. Please, pay me no mind. You deserve some time to yourself, to let your heart ease its way back into things. It was an honest, confident admission. It was my belief that Nagakura would emerge from this crisis as a stronger person, his past be damned. Offering him anything other than support in such a fragile period for him could only worsen his mood. Beyond whatever I could say to him, though, it was up to Nagakura to determine his resolve, how he would choose to move on from his own mistakes. Nagakura blushed as his words trailed off. Thankfully, it seems as though he got the gist of what I was getting at. It was the most encouragement I had seen in days. The next morning, I had the idea of setting up a training regiment for my own swordsmanship. Yes! Anytime that I was given the opportunity to engage in combat or restrain Nagakura, I was often too weak, especially in situations that involved Furies. Hopefully, with due diligence, I would hone my technique enough to become a capable fighter. No, I just wanted to become stronger. Yeah! I unsheathed my kodachi in the middle of an open meadow, letting the wind brush against my cheeks. Recalling the memory of what I had learned in my dojo, I started going through the motions of my practice forms, and put my all into every swing. My legs swatted against tall patches of grass as I wove nimbly through my forms. The air cracked with each vigorous slash of my kodachi, making my back muscles sore. At least we're doing something. As beads of sweat began forming atop my forehead from each exertion, a voice came from behind me. I peeked over my shoulder, realizing Nagakura had crept from out of the hut to watch me train. Huh? So that, when the time comes, I can protect you. My master's greatest lesson was that swordsmanship is best used to hone myself into an instrument of protection, rather than an object of death. Nagakura scoffed at me derisively. Phone. Nagakura, no! It was a pathetic attempt at humor. But for Nagakura, his first instinct was offering a lighthearted quip to deflect the nagging pain. But, as a fellow student of swordsmanship... Oh, God. No, as a swordsman, Hearing someone whom I had respected willingly dismiss our craft was unbearable. Nagakura, why did you commit your entire life previously to swordsmanship? What were you training for? Was there anything in particular that you hoped to achieve? Pick your sword back up. Have some faith in the cause for which you've dedicated your whole life, and believe in what your sword is capable of. Back in Kyoto, I always believed that you wielded your sword because you wanted to protect others. I said all of this in one drawn breath. Not really! With flushed cheeks, Nagakura seemed on the cusp of responding, but I gave him no such chance. I know the true Nagakura, the one whose heart broke for Heisuke's sake. The one who's still reeling with guilt over the loss of his dear friend Kondo-san. I know how benevolent and gentle your soul is, and that's something that you becoming a fury won't change. You mustn't succumb to your affliction. All this time, I've believed in you. So for me, please, don't turn your back on your duty. As I felt my throat strain from... my throat is starting to strain. More like my tongue, though. As I felt my throat strain from... What? Oh, hold on. My eyes. As I felt my throat strain... Wait, what? Hold... There are 3 my's and one of them doesn't belong. As I felt my throat strain from my passionate plea, Nagakura brusquely pulled me into his arms. Or brusquely? Brusquely? Oh god. Suddenly I was smothered by his loving embrace. He placed his tender lips against my ear. No sooner had my answer escaped my lips when I felt his squeeze tighten. Please, I've always believed in you, Nagakura. That's all. A breeze whistled through the blades of grass at our feet, and we separated from one another. I looked deeply into Nagakura's eyes, and he flashed the brightest smile I had seen in ages. Please, feel free to join me. In fact, I would love it if you showed me a thing or two. I mean to say, your style. Shinto Munen style, one of Edo's most prestigious sword styles, used by the likes of Shinpachi Nagakura, Kamo Shirazawa, and Kashitaro Ito. My heart flooded with joy. At last, Nagakura had regained his sense of self. He confronted his fears maturely, never losing sight of what made him so special to me and his allies. Nagakura inspired me by learning from his flaws and choosing to accept rather than shun them. He was becoming the warrior he was born to be. Now, it was up to me to do the same. After giving himself a little more time to process the last hour or so, Nagakura spoke about his desire to rejoin the Seikyo Corps in their fight. As soon as he decided to leave, Nagakura hastily stuffed his things back into his bag and scanned the hut for any remaining belongings. Well, we sort of left them without asking for permission. Are we going to be in trouble? Considering that entire days had passed since our rather churlish departure. Our original goal of reaching Yonezawa was had become long expired. Under the wrong pretenses, our actions could have been deemed treason by desertion in a time of war, which was a charge with life-threatening consequences. Because Nagakura served as the group's vice commander, it could have been seen even worse. If only we had some kind of excuse for having left them without asking for permission. I searched internally for any reasonable explanation, but Nagakura didn't seem fussed for details. Slink in? Although I was hesitant to doubt Nagakura, there was too much at stake for us to risk our lives. Certainly, Nagakura would be able to talk his way out of trouble, but we would have no idea until we actually arrived. Nagakura shut the hut's door behind him, and the two of us began marching in the direction of Yonezawa. The forest was thick, humid, and teeming with enough flora and fauna to provide appropriate cover for us to hide from the Imperial Army. It took days of traversing through untamed path for us to arrive near our destination of the Yonezawa domain. A startling cry from a voice somewhere deep in the forest elicited a flinch from me. Or elicited. Elicited? Elicited.
お前、米沢の兵か。おい、何があった？いきなり化け物の部隊に襲われたんだ。撃っても切っても倒れなくて、みんな殺される。頼む、助けてくれ。
Nagakura and I exchanged terrified looks.
ラーセス兵か。
I fear so. We must hurry. My words were enough to urge Nagakura, who frantically sped through the forest. Oh boy. With the guidance of the Yonezawa soldier, we reached camp with no one to greet us. Bits of ripped tent and amenities were strewn across the grass. Nagakura and I immediately went to inspect the bodies splayed around the encampment. I gasped, realizing no one was breathing. Their skin was pale as snow, colored only by the bloodstains upon their lifeless corpses. Dozens of men were viciously murdered by Furies. A scattering of flayed limbs soaked blood into the forest floor, making me feel sick to my stomach. This is tragic. Was this Father's doing? Father was producing an army so massive that only through constant killing sprees could its collective bloodlust be satiated. Blech. As long as there were Furies. No, as long as Father created Furies, this depravity would continue to ravage innocent people. Keeping his malevolent devices unchecked was a risk to the lives of every man, woman, and child in our country. As we reluctantly ventured deeper into the camp, we saw a familiar figure standing beside a dead campfire. Amagiri, why the fuck are you standing there? Why were you not fast enough? He stepped his foot on a dying ember, staying silent, as if in reverie for the lost souls hovering above camp. After a moment, he addressed Nagakura.
剣を取る気になったのですね。当たり前だろ。明朝、米沢城に向かう羅刹隊を倒しに行きます。あなたも来ますか?
That's a tempting offer. Yonezawa Castle, an enormous castle situated at the center of the Yonezawa domain and protected by a wide moat. For centuries, it was home to the Uesugi clan.
いや、俺にやらせてくれ。羅刹は俺が滅ぼす。
Amagiri curled his lips into a grin, seemingly taken aback by Nagakura's forwardness.
羅刹には羅刹。そういうわけですか。そう言われたこともあったな。
I knew what Nagakura was mentioning immediately. He and Kondo-san had a similar conversation in Kofu. The difference now was that Nagakura experienced a lifetime of personal growth since that fateful day.
確かに外から見りゃそうだろうが、羅刹を生み出すことに関わった人間として、俺が羅刹を滅ぼす。それが関わった者としてのけじめってやつだ。
He expressed conviction through unwavering confidence, and I beamed proudly behind him.
わかりました。手は出しません。存分に力を振るいなさい。ただし、あなたが羅刹の力に溺れるようなことがあれば、黙ってはいません。
Damn, Amagiri with the threats. Nagakura playfully dismissed Amagiri's suggestion, which was a comforting sign.
そんなことはねえと思うが、好きにするがいいさ。
The exhaustion of constant travel was beginning to wear us thin, so we humbly asked a soldier to escort us to a room we could use as lodging. We had limited time to rest, however, and by the next morning had already departed for Yonezawa Castle. Remnants of overcast clouds were washed over with faint blue hues above us, and the time had finally come for us to confront Father and purge the country of furies. Although he revealed to me that our relationship was not tethered by blood, as I had always believed. My heart was fraught with turmoil upon considering the possibility of subduing him, whatever the cost. His crimes against our people and our friends, lest I forget, were unforgivable. I never anticipated what the Furies could become, that Father would let it accelerate to this point. He selfishly sacrificed so many innocent people.
考えてみりゃ、今日で新選組が羅刹を使うっていうことは、これと同じことをしてたってことだよな。今更ながら、自分たちがやってきたことに腹が立つ。確かに、羅刹の力っていうのは、人の世にあってはならないものだよな。俺は羅刹を滅ぼす。それとな。
Uh-oh. Round 4? Well, in the middle of speaking, Nagakura gulped as his eyes began to bulge in their sockets painfully. Round 4. In an instant, his body began convulsing violently, followed by a change in color in his hair and eyes.
なんだよ。羅刹を滅ぼそうっていう俺自身が。羅刹の呪縛からは逃げられねえってことかよ。
Nagakura started through shallow breaths, clawing at his throat with haggard fingernails. Boy, you already know the answer. But Nagakura! He stuck his hand outwards, halting my approach. What should I do? As always, it's give him blood. It's fine. You have nothing to hide from me. I want to see everything. Your flaws, your weaknesses, everything. Once more, I slid my short sword out from its sheath and placed it against my collarbone as I broke the skin with a small incision. Collarbone? Wait. That's the front of the neck, isn't it? She usually does it in the back of her neck. Wait. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know the human body. If you refuse to drink my blood, then you'll be in no condition to fight my father or the Furies. So please, show me everything. Nagakura slithered towards me nervously, tickling my ear with eager, staggered breaths. Show me your true self, Nagakura. If my blood is what gives you life, then I want you to sit me until the last drop. That is a dangerous sentence. He lapsed momentarily in hesitation, but soon I felt the moist touch of his tongue flickering against my cut. I'm sorry. I'm reading that line and it just, my brain went to something else. Oh, God. Yes, let my blood flow through you, and together we will become one. I feel there was a better way to write that line. Then again, this localization is full of errors. I will. Only the taste of my blood could silence Nagakura and dull the pain terrorizing his entire body. After his bloodlust seemed to calm, we resumed our arduous trek to Yonezawa, which unfortunately had been delayed until the middle of the night. We moved diligently through the forest, navigating through wayward pine-filled branches until we could make out the castle town glowing in the distance. The undertaking involved in our task was becoming more concrete, and I could tell it unsettled Nagakura. He took a deep breath before speaking with a clear sense of discomfort in his voice. What was that? If you're talking about father, I'm ready for anything. I wouldn't say easy, but... It warmed my heart to hear Nagakura's words of concern for my well-being. I'm not sure. I know he made mention of the fact that supposedly I'm not his real daughter, but... my only lasting impression of him is a kind, loving father, so... I finished my thought by saying... I will defeat him. It felt strange being so resolute in my convictions. If it turns out that father truly is the one to blame for all of these murders, then I'll defeat him myself. It was my father who created the Furies and set all of this chaos into motion. So as his daughter, it is my task alone to undo the calamity he has invoked on our people.
無理しなくていいんだぜ。君の剣はそんなことのために振るっちゃいけない。その時は俺が剣を振るおう。
Nagakura.
まあ、あれだ。とっ捕まえてぶん殴ってやるからよ。二度と羅刹なんかに関わらねえように反省させてやる。ちょうどいいぜ。一度あの親父をぶん殴ってやりたかったんだよな。
Nagakura's cheerful levity brought a welcome smile to my face and mine because, oh boy, I can't tell if he's just trying to lighten the mood or is being serious. Confronting my father was a growing inevitability. Ugh. But hearing Nagakura make light of our circumstances so coolly was a charming gesture. For all of these years, my entire life really, I regarded him as my flesh and blood, but he wasn't. Guess there really isn't anyone in the world that I could call family. I'm all alone out here after all. My eyes dropped to the floor to suppress myself from crying, and Nagakura wrapped me in his arms. I let myself melt into his I can't read. Yeah. Hold on. Just enjoy this. I let myself melt into his bosom, caressing it gently as his warmth soaked pleasantly to my cheek.
本物の親子じゃなくても育ての親って言葉もある。そんな簡単に縁が切れたり割り切れるもんじゃないよな。でもよ、ここにも一人いることを忘れないでくれよ。
I can't tell if he knows or is still in denial. I'm sorry. Please let this be the moment he admits it. Can it be the moment? Is it the moment? I don't know. And we don't have our duck friends with us. Since our first acquaintance, Nagakura had made a point of showing how deeply he cared for me. Our hearts were inexplicably drawn together from the start. Say, didn't you used to say that I was like your little sister or something like that, Nagakura?
いや、そうじゃなくて、もっと親密っていうか、千鶴ちゃんとはもっと仲のいい関係になりたいって思ってる。
Huh?
君のことは俺の大事な女性としてそばにいてほしいと思ってて。
Then, as if hoping to convince me with the strength of his grip, Nagakura tightened his arms around me.
だから、君とはあれだ。夫婦ってやつになりたいと思ってる。そのちぎりを今交わしたいと思うんだが。
This boy. Oh God. Oh my God, Nagakura. we all knew he wasn't the smoothest, but holy shit. Jesus! Yes, I would be honored to accept. I lifted my jaw upwards, coaxed by his enticing stare. Then our lips were pressed softly together. Never had I been swept by such a romantic thrall. But here, we bask in our love under the twilight. This was no mirage, no loathsome daydream. This was a kiss of intent, one that signified our eternal devotion to our love to each other. I felt safe in Nagakura's quivering mouth, cradled by his tender embrace as he pressed his hand against the small of my back. Nagakura and I, at long last, were uninhibited, free to let our hearts entwine in a moment of genuine bliss. Each moment, I sunk deeper into his loving arms. With them, the embers of our affection kept me warm until morning. And cut to the music. Not even giving it a proper ending. Just straight into it. Does this mean they're engaged now? Holy shit. Dawn erased the pitch black covering the sky. Patterns of stars above, a purple patchwork dissolving into a shade of light blue by morning. Unbeknownst to the Fury Corps on their march to Yonezawa Castle, we sat idly, waiting for their arrival. While the castle guard was half asleep, they covertly planned a siege to flood the castle with Furies. It was just as Amagiri had predicted. I don't know what that was. Nagakura, they're here.
Ah.
From the bushes behind which we were hiding, Nagakura leapt into the crowd of marching Furies. Much to our surprise, none of the Furies pounced reflexively to Nagakura's sudden intrusion. Instead, they opened a path for Father to emerge. Ah, fuck! Father let out a lackadaisical sigh? Lackadaisical sigh? Oh, fuck. This drew no ire from Nagakura, who shut his eyes before offering a calm response.
Nah, Kodo-san yo. 俺が羅刹になって意識を保つってのはいっぱいいっぱいだった。三男さんや平助もそうだったに違いねえ。普通のやつを羅刹にして狂わないようにするためには、夕べの陣を襲ったり、そしてこの先の城下で人を襲ったりして、そうやって人を襲っていくしかねえんだよな。人で亡くなった羅刹を生かすために人を殺していく。もうそんな負の連鎖はここで終わりにしねえか。
Father stroked his chin in amusement, sniggering as if Nagakura had shared a humorous anecdote. All was as we feared. Father was unwilling to see reason, meaning we had no choice but to end this wicked abomination ourselves. Or ambition ourselves. I mean, abomination also works. Nagakura, perhaps realizing this fact as well, formed his lips into a frown.
やっぱり無理だったみたいだ。そんじゃ力ずくでやらせてもらうぜ。
My ears popped from the hiss of screeching metal as Nagakura unsheathed his katana. Whoa! As soon as his sword was unsheathed, the Furies aggressively swarmed Nagakura.
てめえら、そこどけ！俺が用があるのはコードさんだけなんだよ。
所詮君も羅刹ではないですか。彼らとどこが違うというのです。君は今仲間を殺しているんですよ。
Father's condensation echoed over the backdrop of Nagakura's frantic skirmishing as the latter struck at each of his opponent's vital organs.
いや、俺はこいつらに本当の死を教えてやっている。本当はとっくに死んだってことを思い出させてるんだよ。
As the Furies rushed Nagakura with hands extended to claw at him, he responded by slicing at their veins before thrusting his sword into their hearts. The most incredible thing about his adept display of swordsmanship was that he was in his human form.
それに、俺はもう羅刹になんかならない。頼らない。俺は長倉神仏だ。
Nagakura barked as he maneuvered bravely into a crowd of Furies, slashing wildly as their bodies hit the floor like plums dropping from a tree branch. That's a specific thing.
羅刹にならない君など、羅刹に私にかなうはずがないだろう。
I mean, he's doing it. Oh, fuck. Father's lips curled into a maniacal grin, drawing from his sleeves a handful of scalpels. With an agile flick of his blade, Nagakura smacked the scalpels from out of Father's hand. Damn! Yeah, I've never seen anyone done that yet. Oh, shit! Father was aghast at having been disarmed so deftly. Nagakura smirked, flipping his sword in his hand to strike fiercely at Father with the blunt edge. Whew! He's doing tricks now!
なぜそんなに強い？
はっ、これが神道無念流だからだよ。いや、人間のバカ力ってやつだ。人間の力をなめんじゃねえぞ。
Nagakura rolled the hilt of his sword coolly in his hand, biting his lip as he stared at it hesitantly.
やっぱり殺せねえか。
え？
しずるちゃんの願いでな、父親は殺せないそうだ。お前がどんな奴だろうと、彼女にとっては父親だったんだ。
Father's eyes shifted to me with a helpless expression.
私をまだ父だと思ってくれているのか。
Always, Father. Well, that just happened. From out of the shadows leapt a Fury, seemingly on the cups of death, who savagely attacked Father. Father? Father!
てめえら、やめろ！やめろってだ！血をよこせ！
With mangled, slashed faces, some of the Furies rose from the ground, droplets of blood dripping from the fresh, deep cuts along their tattered bodies.
どけって言ってるんだ!
Nagakura attempted to swat the herd of furies swarming towards father, but it was futile. There were simply too many to handle. In spite of this, Nagakura continued swinging, aiming the tip of his katana at each fury's beating heart. By the time Nagakura slayed all the furies, however, father had been totally massacred. Father. I was devastated to see his body so viciously mutilated. But in his last dying moments, he called me by my name. There was something tender about the way it fell from his mouth, and I was thrust into a bittersweet reverie. A revere, I don't know. It was like I was a young girl again. A token of solace that I was unwilling to relent. As my mind swirled from forlorn thoughts, Amagiri appeared from out of nowhere.
これでこの日の本の戦に関わる羅刹はいなくなった。それでいいですね。光道さんを倒したんだからそうだろうな。いや、まだいるか。新選組の羅刹。いや、多分あんたたちが狙うような羅刹はもうこの世にはいないと思う。あなたは羅刹ではないというのですね。
Nagakura nodded with confidence, his eyes beaming.
俺ともう一度勝負してくれねえか。本当に羅刹がもういないかどうかを証明してみせるよ。
Amagiri grinned wryly, raising his fist in anticipation. Oh, boy! The two of them had shared countless duels. Amagiri was certainly no stranger to combat, and had effortlessly subdued many warriors with only his bare hands. So, too, had he defeated Nagakura, who was considered the strongest warriors in the Shinsengumi, twice. This time, Nagakura had access to fury powers. Tension was thick in the air, making me so nervous it felt like static brushed against my arms, and the two warriors readied their weapons silently. Each of them sized up the other before meeting eyes. Something in the back of my mind told me that this battle would be decided in only one strike. A fitting climax to their harrowing relationship. Each man kicked at the ground, cracking the floor beneath the feet. There are so many years! Each man kicked at the ground, cracking the floor beneath their feet in an immense display of powers. Like I had expected, their duel ended in a flash. By the time I blinked, Nagakura had his blade pressed against Amagiri's collarbone with a grin on his face. Amagiri, however, was barely within arm's length of Nagakura's abdomen.
お見事です。羅刹の力を使わずに私に勝てるとは。それでこそ雪村の娘を預けるにふさわしい。
Nagakura smiled in a winsome fashion.
もう二度と羅刹の力は使わない。けどよ、羅刹である俺はもう人の戦に関わってはいけないんだな。ええ、そう思います。
Nagakura gave a small nod in response. Amagiri rested his arms, letting them fall to his waist as he sauntered off without another word. I wondered if we would ever cross paths again. As his back shrank with each step, I bowed deeply in his direction. I glanced over at Nagakura, who sheathed his sword as he watched Amagiri disappear into the distance. Are you going to be okay with giving up your position as a warrior for the foreseeable future?
新政府軍はもう憎たらしい薩長ってわけじゃない。勢いのある奴らがのし上がるっていうのはこういうことなんだろうな。幕府には散々世話になった。けどもいろんなところにガタが来て腐ってたのは残念だけど本当のことだったんだ。俺たちは必死にそれを守ろうとしていただけなんだよな。新政府の奴らがどういう世の中を作っていくのか、もう少し長生きしてみるのも悪くない。君と一緒にね。
Yes. Wherever you go, I will go. I mean, we are married now after all. That got me! Alright. I gently grabbed the whole of Nagakura's hand. Except now, he was Shinpachi to me. He gripped my hand tightly in return, and the two of us shared an incredible silence together. Or indelible. Indelible? That's a word I haven't seen before. Silence together. Is it credits time? It's credit time! Alright. Where am I putting you, Shin? I don't know where to put you. I don't know where to put him. Oh, Lord. He might end up in the top 6 or just below it. Ooh, that depends how everybody else's ends that's currently in the top 6. Which, if you weren't here last night, we spun a wheel. And, it's Soji Okita's turn, and I am not prepared for this man! Okita. It's Okita's turn. We'll deal with him. The counter's going to go up, but we'll deal with him. But for now, let's enjoy Nagakura's ending. Up. Game. Give me. Yes. Let's see how this ends. Oh god, the sad music. Oh god, the sad music. The year is 1872. I think the last year was 1869, 68. Anyway, we skip ahead a couple of years. 3 years had passed since Shinpachi's fateful battle in Yonezawa, and he returned to his ancestral home in the Matsumae domain. Matsumae domain, a domain just southwest of Ezo, that was once a member of the Northern Alliance. The death of its feudal lord sent discord through the domain, which led to its eventual change of alliance to the Imperial Army. Hakodate is located here! Oh god. Punishments were being strictly doled by any affiliate of the shogunate who fought against the imperial army. In order to avoid imprisonment, Shinpachi rightfully fled to the Matsumae domain where he was born. At first, Shinpachi had trouble settling into his familiar surroundings, having felt long since detached from his previous lifestyle when he became a warrior. Given the country's political climate, however, we were faced with no other choice. The Shinsengumi waged war against the imperial army until the bitter end. In the aftermath of the war, any member of the Shinsengumi was branded as a traitor, becoming wanted criminals in the eyes of the new government. I was unsurprised when my extensive involvement with the Shinsengumi meant that I was included in the list of wanted, and so Shinpachi moved us into hiding. My arrival was met with commotion in Shinpachi's home. His unannounced return in tandem with the sudden declaration of our marriage was surely quite jarring, to say the least. His family welcomed us with kind and open arms, giving us refuge until well after the war's aftermath, which was how we settled into the Matsumae domain. Our village was called Otaru, tucked in a relatively remote corner of the Ezo region. Allegedly, the Imperial Army rarely visited here. Today, Shinpachi suggested that the two of us take a stroll to the riverbed situated in the center of Otaru, which I recognized as a calm silver that I had recognized as a quaint sliver of water. This is cute. Oh my gosh, she's not having her hair tied! Her hair is down! I have not seen her with her head. Ah! She's wearing green and white. I'm dead. I'm dead. We took our stroll, and Shinpachi found a patch of tall grass beside the river, sitting down as he watched his reflection ripple in the cool sunlit water. He looked at himself wistfully, like he had been staring directly into a distant memory. We heard of Hijikata-san's passing in Hokodate. Okita sadly succumbed to his tuberculosis in Edo. We heard that, following the Battle of Aizu, Saito-san had gone missing in action. Heisuke and Sanan-san, too, passed away in Sendai. As for Harada, to whom Shinpachi had felt the closest kinship, he was killed in action during a battle with the Shogi Company in Ueno, just as we had feared. A fleeting expression wrapped around Shinpachi's face. He almost seemed keen on dropping into the river. Out of worry, I called out to him. "Shinpachi, you're still here, aren't you?" He turned his head upwards, breaking his own stare as he smiled warmly back at me. It was the smile I'd fallen in love with so easily. Shinpachi wrapped his massive arms around me merrily. I leaned into his warm, soft skin, feeling my hair stand from the simple touch of his body. Shinpachi made a vow that he would never use his fury powers until the day he died. His will was unbreakable, except when it came to me and matters of the heart, and I knew he'd keep his promise. Although he hadn't cured himself entirely of his affliction, his mind and body were disciplined. I rested against him, thinking of the entire life that we had yet to spend together. We would live on, hearts beating carelessly, Our future was in our hands. We're done! Ah, the pain! The achievement is, Ma, I'm moving back in. What the fuck? Okay. I don't think we have any DLC, do we? No, these are the other boys. Alright. I've never seen... I was more excited about Chizuru in that ending picture than Nagakura without his hand towel thing. But ah! But since we've been doing that, it is Okita's turn. To which we are going to be skipping where we can, because it's a lot of the same story. We've been through this story twice. I don't want to keep reading the same thing that often, so I will do it all the way through for Sakamoto and Soma when we get to them. But since it's Okita, I just want to get through it. And all the other ones that we get, if we get repeats. No matter what repeat it is, I will do it fast. Because it's a lot of the same choices. But, let's exit and open Kyoto Winds. And we will change the game. Hopefully, there it is. Let's change the game. Dead. Enjoy the opening while I fix this. Oh no! Oh. I didn't expect it to actually do that. It went away on its own. I had nothing to do with it. I'm gonna let it play while I find the guide. Oh, I was smart. I did it ahead of time. Alright. 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 I need to see if anybody is gonna join me on this journey. But I don't think so, though. Fuck it. Let's go. We're starting this journey. We are starting this journey. Use Chizuru. Of course we're gonna use Chizuru. This is a work of fiction. Name, characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents mentioned in this work do not have... I can't read. Yeah! We're skipping the prologue. Don't know. We went to Kyoto. Went to Kyoto looking for our father. It's now nighttime. We were chased by Ronin. The Ronin didn't follow us. Then some 3 guys in blue with white hair and red eyes had killed the Ronin that were chasing us. And killed them, and we got caught up in a bunch of shit. So, yeah. Now we're starting from chapter 1. We've been through this. I am skipping. I'll just do this, so we have a refresher of what has happened. All at once, the events of the previous night rushed back to me. This is in my room. My limbs were snugly bound in tight knots, so all I could do was wiggle around in bed, twisting the blankets around me. God damn it, Okita! I yearned for the comfort of my own futon, but the fertility of such thoughts only forced me to confront the reality of my situation. If only I could wake from this strange nightmare. But I could not. Those men from the night before must have taken me with them to the headquarters of the Shinsengumi. What will happen to me now? I inhaled deeply, lying down to await my fate. It was at that moment that the door slid open and a kind-looking man stepped through.
Ah, 目が覚めたかい? すまんな、こんな扱いで。今、縄を緩めるから少し待ってくれ。
His smile quirked as he removed my ropes. My wrists, however, were left bound. You are?
ああ、そうか。私はね、井上源三郎というんだ。
Sorry, I'm still reeling in from pain about Inoue from the last run. Thank you, Inoue.
さて、ちょっと来てくれるかい? 今朝から幹部連中であんたについて話し合っているんだが。
My brain just thought, damn, this would be so painful if you kept doing loops of this story for 12, 13 times. Oh, God. It'll be worse depending if you remember everything or not. Or by the end of it, you remember everything. I don't know.
ゆうべ、あんたが何を見たのか確かめておきたいってことになってね。
Okay. I nodded curtly and struggled to stand, but my body was sore from being bound up all night again, goddammit fucking Okita. Anyway, treated me with something like courtesy, but it was clear that I was in a lesser position. He must have been able to guess my thoughts, however, because he smiled at me and winked.
心配しなくても大丈夫さ。なりは怖いが、気のいい者たちばかりだよ。
Oh. Even at home, I heard rumors of the vicious Shinsengumi that were unflattering. Shinsengumi, bleh. It was hard to imagine that the people in charge of such an organization were gentlemen.
一番年の若い東堂君は君よりちょっと年上くらいだよ。それに長倉君と原田君という賑やかな二人組もいるから大丈夫。
Despite Inoue's reassurances, it was difficult for me to trust what I was hearing as accurate. Excuse me. Inoue led me to a room and opened a door. I stepped inside and found myself surrounded by the leaders of the Shinsengumi. Their eyes dug into me like sharp knives. I stared before me, and then gulped nervously.
Ohayo. 昨日はよく眠れた?
There's a car! It's going brr! Don't know where it's headed. Well, it wasn't particularly comfortable.
そうなんだ。さっき僕が声をかけた時には、君、全然起きてくれなかったよね。幸せそうな寝顔で、ぐっすりだったみたいだけど。
What?
からかわれているだけだ。掃除はあんたの部屋になど行ってない。
Quite silently. Or silently? You just say silently! Silently, I stared at Okita. With his grin still spread along his face, he glanced over to Saito.
もう少しこの子の反応を見たかったんだけどな。はじめくんもひどいよね。勝手にバラすなんてさ。
I don't think Saito-san did anything wrong. You, on the other hand.
おいてめえら、無駄口ばっか叩いてんじゃねえ。
Hijikata-san's voice broke no further in subordination. Okita-san shrugged and fell silent, but the smile lingered through his bright eyes.
でさ、土方さん、そいつが目撃者。
The man who spoke was, well, he looked more like a boy than a man. Maybe this is the youthful Shinsengumi captain that Inoue was describing to me? I'd imagine the leaders of the Shinsengumi to be older, maybe even middle-aged men, but their faces were still blessed with youth. In fact, why might even confuse them at first glance as a gang of bohemian thugs? I don't know how I feel about this line, because I know in the original they translated it as something completely different. I think just thugs. Don't know where bohemian came from.
ちっちゃいし細っこいな。まだガキだろこいつ。
お前がガキとか言うなよ、平助。
だな。世間様から見りゃ平助もこいつも似たようなもんだろうよ。
ガキ扱いしていいのは俺みたいな立派な大人になってからだぜ。
立派な大人って、まあ新八が言っても説得力も何もねえがな。
Two nearby men replied to Todo with very mocking. Oh god. But light-hearted tones. With very mocking but light-hearted tones. I somewhat recall Inoue's description of the two energetic members. His mention of them was brief, but seeing them in person was an eye-opening experience. He said the short-haired one was Nagakura, and the other, with longer hair, was Harada.
うるさいな。おじさん二人は黙ってなよ。
ふざけんなよこのお坊ちゃまが。俺らにそんな口聞いていいと思ってんのか。
平助におじさん呼ばわりされるほど年は食ってねえよ。新八はともかく俺はな。
てめえ裏切るのか佐野。
へへ、新八さん図星されて怒るって大人げねえよな。
Their back and forth rapport seemed developed into a rhythm from years of friendship, which predated my arrival and made me foreign here. I sensed something apart from curiosity towards me, though, like a feeling of animosity. Despite their chiefful levity, they had not forgiven my presence among them. Oh god, I actually said forgiven. Suddenly, I wanted very much to go home. I wanted to leave this place and never return. My chest tightened and I stared down, hoping to wake up in bed with all of this only being a memory.
口さがない方ばかりで申し訳ありません。あまり怖がらないでくださいね。
His voice was calm and warm, but I felt myself relax, even if only a little bit.
何言ってんだ。一番怖いのはあんただろう、三男さん。
As he finished speaking, the rest of the men nodded solemnly in agreement. I wondered, who could possibly command such fear and respect from these men?
おや、心外ですね。皆さんはともかく鬼の副長まで何をおっしゃるんです。私はいつだって新選組の規範を第一に考えているだけですよ。その規範、ご法度を決めたのは土方君、君じゃなかったですか。確かに決めたのは俺だ。だが今はそんなことを言ってる時じゃねえだろう。
And the man called Sanan-san and Hijikata-san stared at one another with a smirk.
トシと三男君は相変わらず仲が良いな。
Hijikata-san and Sana-san sounded distant when they spoke to one another. Not exactly friendly. Still, the man who spoke had certainly sounded as though he thought they were friends.
ああ、自己紹介が遅れたな。俺が新選組局長、近藤勇だ。
When you say chief, do you mean to say you're the most important man in the Shinsengumi?
いや、まあ、俺が偉いわけじゃない。皆の代表ということだよ。それから、そこの都市が副長で、横にいる三男君は総長を務めていて。
いや、近藤さん、なんでいろいろ教えてやってんだよ、あんたは。
まずいのか？
情報を与える必要がないんだったら黙ってる方が得策なんじゃないですかね。
わざわざ教えてやる義理はないと思うけど。
確かにそうなんだが、紹介しないことには話が進まんだろう。
Harada glanced over at Kondo-san and let out a bark of laughter.
ま、ここまで来たら知られて困ることもねえけどな。
Kondo-san had looked rather disappointed when Hijikata-san spoke, but he perked up at Harada's words. Despite knowing him for 5 minutes, it's easy to see that his words resonated well with his men. He had a sort of charisma that simply drew you in, a man who was impossible to hate.
さて、本題に入ろう。まずは改めて昨晩の話を聞かせてくれるか。
はい。昨晩京の都を夜間巡察中に不老の老師と遭遇。相手が刀を抜いたため切り合いとなりました。一部の大使らが老師を無力化しましたが、その折彼らが失敗した様子をこの者に目撃されています。
As he finished, Saito-san turned to look at me. I didn't see anything. Even with my insistence, Hijikata-san continued to stare at me with a harsh glance. Saito-san remained expressionless, and the smile on Okita's face didn't change.
なあ、お前本当に何も見てないのか？
Yes, I didn't see anything.
見てないんならいいんだけどさ。
あれ、掃除の話じゃお前が大使どもを助けてくれたって話だったが。
Soldier. No, that's not true. I glanced over at Okita, but his smile remained. Whatever he was thinking was a mystery to me. I was running away from the Ronin. Then some people with Shinsengumi uniforms appeared. Really, they sort of rescued me.
つまり、大使どもが老師を切り殺してる場面はしっかり見たってわけだな。
I couldn't exactly deny that. However, I knew that choosing to stay silent would implicate me deeper than lying would.
つまり最初から最後まで一部始終を見てたってことか。お前、根が素直なんだろうな。それ自体は悪いことじゃないんだろうが。
I wasn't sure what to make of Harada's words. My presence seemed bad for the Shinsengumi. Would their next words be ones condemning me to death for being at the wrong place in time? My voice shook, but I knew I had to try. I won't tell anyone! I promise!
偶然老師に絡まれていたという君が私たちに敵対するものとまでは言いませんが、君に言うつもりがなくとも相手の誘導尋問に乗せられる可能性はある。
His voice was still warm, but his words were cold, and I began to feel my chances of life slip away.
話さないというのは簡単だが、この者が新選組に義理立てする理由もない。
約束を破らない保証なんてないですし、やっぱり解放するのは 難しいですよね。ほら、殺しちゃいましょうよ。口封じするならそれが一番じゃないですか。
But
当時物騒なことを言うな。お上の民をむやみに殺して何とする。
そんな顔しないでくださいよ。今のはただの冗談ですから。
shut up, Shoji.
あんたは冗談に聞こえる冗談を言え。
After being rebuked by Saito-san, Okita gave a playful smile.
しかしなんとかならんのかね。まだこんな子供だろう。
私も何とかしてあげたいとは思いますが、うっかり漏らされでもしたら一大事です。さて、私は副長のご意見を伺いたいのですが、いかがですか、土方副長。
The man looked at Hijikata-san, listening intently. He sighed and glanced around the room.
俺たちは昨晩、指導に背いた大使を粛清した。こいつはその現場に居合わせた。
それだけだとおっしゃりたいんですか。
実際このガキの認識なんざその程度のもんだとは思うんだ
けどよ、こればっかりは大義のためにも内密にしなきゃなんねえことだよな。新選組の大使は血に狂ってるなんて噂が立ちゃ、俺らのタイムにだって支障が出るぜ。
Shinpachi's words made sense to everyone. Hijikata-san's face looked grim.
おい、言葉を慎め。俺は指導に背いた大使を粛清したと言ったはずだぞ。
でもまあどっちみち見たことは変わらないんですけどね。
宗司の意見にも一理あると思うが、まあ俺は土方さんや近藤さんの決定に従う。
俺は逃がしてやってもいいと思う。こいつは別にあいつらが血に狂った理由を知っちまったわけでもないんだしさ。
What do you mean, everything? I couldn't help but wonder aloud, and the mood in the room shifted into an icy silence.
平助、余計な情報をくれてやるな。
悪い。
ああ、これでますます君の無罪放免が難しくなっちゃったね。
男子たるもの死ぬ覚悟くらいできてんだろ。お前も諦めて腹くくっちまいな。
A man? Oh, that's right. They still believe me to be a boy. With everything else that had happened, I'd completely forgotten how I was dressed.
確かに潔く死ぬのも男の道だな。俺も若い頃は切腹したし。
佐野の場合、まだ生きてるけどな。
Their jokes were barbaric, but they both broke into raucous laughter. Raucous?
副長、結論も出ないことですし、一旦このものを部屋に戻してはどうでしょうか。同席させた状態で誰かが機密を漏らせば、処分も何も殺すほかなくなります。
He was right. If I remained with them, then I could easily hear something I wasn't supposed to. I didn't think he'd mention it for my sake, but rather as a possible concern for their group. I was still relieved when he brought it up.
そういうことにするか。ちょっと調べたいこともあるし。
私もその判断には賛成しますよ。ここには迂闊な方も多いですしね。
三男さん、わざわざこっち見て言うとかきついよ。
まあ仕方ねえよ。迂闊なのは俺らの担当だろ。主に平助とかな。
そんな責めるなよ。俺だって悪気はなかったんだからさ。
I could hear Todo's voice rise as everyone turned to look at him. He looked at them for a bit, then turned to me and mumbled out in a voice I could barely hear.
あのさ、悪かったな。
I was still apprehensive about what they might do to me, so I couldn't quite respond to him well. But he seemed to understand, and I curtly managed to nod. It was the most I could manage.
それじゃ斉藤、こいつを頼む。
承知しました。行くぞ。
Alright. After returning to my room, I'd spent some time reflecting upon my state and my still bound hands. So skippy skip, cause why not? They mention a man must always be ready for to face death. So are they still mistaking me for a man? Yep. Anyway. I was truly at a loss for what to do. And the answer is, find a way to escape. There was nothing for it. I had to try and escape. Meaning I needed to get moving immediately. Staying in this room did nothing to help me. Fortunately, they hadn't bothered to tie me up completely again. Only my hands were bound. That would slow me down, certainly, but so long as I could move my legs, I stood a chance. Alright, now the exit is... I cast my memory back to when they brought me into the building the night before. Right. I'm sure it would work out. I stood up. Holding my breath, I edged towards the door. I knew it was rude, but I had no choice but to try and open the sliding door with my toe. But I was almost there when suddenly it flew open all on its own, revealing...
No!
Ah! I stumbled straight into Kondo-san.
ずいぶん大胆な方ですね。まさか逃げるつもりだったんですか？勝手に動いては困りますね。君の身が余計に危うくなるだけですよ。
His voice was calm and not unfriendly, but his eyes were frigid and calculating. Too late, I realized why they hadn't bothered to tie me up again. They'd been watching me.
逃げれば切る。ゆうべ、俺は確かにそう言ったはずだが。
残念だけど、殺しちゃうしかないかな。約束を破るこの言葉なんて信用できないからね。
Okita smiled. He didn't look very sorry. I stayed where I was. You won't give me a chance to explain myself? I was innocent, but complaining wasn't going to help me. Perhaps it would be best if I simply accepted my death. Then, you may do whatever you like with me. Okita roared with laughter, his shoulders shaking. The anger in my voice proved unaffecting to them.
Kimi, 面白いね。でも、ちょっといじめすぎちゃったかな。もう少し肩の力抜いてよ。取って食べたりしないからさ。
What do you want? You were just talking about killing me.
君みたいに潔い女の子、初めて見たよ。
Huh? A girl? You knew I was a girl?
そうじゃ、この少年が女子だというのか。
近藤さん、落ち着いてくれ。気づいてるやつは気づいてたみたいだが、あんたはまず分かってねえと思ってたが。
もしかして三男君も気づいていたのか。
ええ、一生懸命に男装を試みてますが、どこから見ても女の子です。
さあ、お兄さんたちに話してごらん。女の子が男装してまで夜の京を歩いていた理由。
Did he call himself Oni-san? 。
さあ、お兄さんたちに話してごらん。女の子が男装してまで夜の京を歩いていた理由。
Did he call himself Oni-san? 。 Fuck you. Fuck you. Akita-san. Sana-san shrugged and let out a loud sigh.
もう一度皆を集めましょうか。意見を変えるものが出るかもしれませんからね。
There I was, surrounded once again by the leaders of the Shinsengumi.
少年にしては華奢で可愛らしい顔をしていると思っていたんだが、まさか本当に女子だったとはな。
Kondo-san was nodding his head repeatedly, as if he were agreeing with a very intelligent suggestion. For him to notice the softness of my features, it flattered me a bit.
女だって聞いてから見ると女にしか見えなくなってくるんだよ
な。しかし女の子を一晩縄で縛っておくとは悪いことをしたね。
でもよ、女だって言うが別に証拠はないんだろ。
Proof?
証拠も何も一目瞭然だろうが、なんなら脱がせてみるか。
許さんぞ。衆目の中、女子に肌をさらさせるなど言語道断。
だがまあ、それが一番手っ取り早いと思ったんだ。無理にとは言わないがな。
でもよ、本当に女だって言うなら殺しちまうのも忍びねえよな。
何甘いこと言ってるんだ。男だろうが女だろうが性別の違いは生かす理由にならねえだろう。
もっともです。ですが女性に限らずそもそも人を殺すのは忍びないことですよ。今日の治安を守るために組織された私たちが無益な殺生をするわけにはいきません。
結局女の子だろうが男の子だろうが、今日の平安を乱しかねないなら話は別ですよね。
The Shinsengumi had already suffered a very gruesome reputation in Kyoto. If rumors spread that their men were thirsty for blood, things weren't likely to go well for them. Kyoto would banish them, and with no one to protect the people, the city would erupt into chaos. Each of their members deeply understood the consequences of behaving rashly in these times.
悪いが、お前の荷物を改めさせてもらったぞ。どうやら江戸からここまで一人で来たみてえだな。荷物はわずかな着替えと一月分の小銭、それと数通の手紙とこの子たち。手紙には幕府御殿医の松本良順の名前があった。おそらくそこを訪ねたんだろう。お前の目的は何だ。
The minute my name was spoken, the vibe in the room shifted immediately. Everyone wore a stunned expression, eyes wide, and no words were uttered in response until...
土方さん、その名前は。
おいおい、偶然にしちゃって行き過ぎだぜ。
まあ待て。それを判断するためにも、まずは君の話を聞かせてくれるかな。
At Kondo-san's behest, I stood up to speak. My name is Chizuru Yukimura. Under the watchful eyes of the leaders, I sharply described how I came to face them, how I lived in Edo, how I'd come to Kyoto to find my father, how lonely the city felt before I arrived.
そうか。出身も江戸だったのだな。父上を探して遠路はるばる京に来たのか。して、お父上は何という方かね。
My father is Kodo Yukimura.
つながったな。
What are you talking about?
あなたが持っていた手紙の筆跡。これはまさに高堂さんのものでしたが、まさか本当に高堂さんのご息女とはね。
You know my father? The silence was enough to tell me that the revelation of my parentage caused a pronounced change in their behavior.
どこまで知ってる。
Huh? What information are you talking about?
いいから洗いざらい全部吐け。何しに今日に来やがった。
I just came to look for my father. I swear I don't know anything else.
親父の行動さんが何をしてるか知っててここに来たんだろうが。
I was only aware of my father being in Kyoto for his medical work, but I haven't seen him since last summer. That's all I know.
土方君、どうやら本当に何も知らないのかもしれませんよ。
So what do you know about my father? Where is he right now? Please, tell me.
高堂さんの行方は現在新選組でも探している。
You're after my father? So this means...
あ、勘違いしないでね。僕たちは高堂さんを狙ってるわけじゃないから。
I see. A huge wave of relief came over me.
同じ幕府側の協力者なんだけど、実は彼、夏から行方知れずなんだよね。
幕府をよく思わない者たちが高堂さんに目をつけた可能性が高い。
I let out an audible gasp, but decided to continue without paying me any mind.
生きている公算も高い。乱方医は利用価値がある存在だ。
I wasn't sure what else to do, so I nodded. My heart pounded in my chest, threatening to burst onto the floor.
近藤さん、どうでしょうか。同じ人物を探す者同士、彼女に手を貸してあげてはいかがかと。
手を貸すとはどういうことかね。
高堂さんが見つかるまで互いに協力し合うということです。彼女に協力してもらうことで高堂さんが見つかる可能性は格段に上昇するでしょう。私たちがいくら探しても姿形を変えられてしまっては見抜くことは難しい。ですが高堂さんの娘である君ならば身なりが変わっていようと看破できますね。
Yes, of course. I nodded as I spoke, while giving him what I hoped seemed like a steady, reassuring smile.
それに彼女が手中にあるというのは何かと都合がいいと思います。
どうだトシ、三男君の意見に俺は賛成だ。
こいつが本当に何も知らねえって言うんなら。
It's true. All I know is that my father headed to Kyoto, but I don't know anything else. And about last night, I didn't see anything.
まあ、あの乱暴医の娘となりゃ殺しちまうわけにもいかねえか。
His eyes narrowed as he looked down at me.
昨べの件は忘れるって言うんなら父親が見つかるまでお前を保護してよ。
君の父上を見つけるためならば我ら新選組は協力は惜しまんとも。
Thank you so much. I never imagined something like this. I was elated to have escaped death, but not only had I survived, but I found my first decent lead.
殺されずに済んでよかったね。とりあえずはだけど。
He gave me that same wolfish grin. There was no denying that my situation was still less than desirable, but it hadn't mattered for now. Yes, I'm very glad. Against all odds, at last I'd found help where I'd never have expected. The Shinsengumi. The first day in Kyoto was quite the adventure. In spite of everything I'd seen, my fortune was improving with every step. I still had a long way to go, but keeping positive was my only hope.
雪村君、よかったね。これからはよろしく頼むよ。
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure for me as well.
なあ、ゲンさん。女子となれば、ここのような男女体では申し訳ない気がするんだが。
ええ、そうですね。これはちょっと困りましたな。
Kondo crossed his arms and thought deeply.
不便があれば言うといい。その都度可能な範囲で対処しよう。
Thank you.
まあ女の子となりゃ手厚くもてなさんといかんよな。
新八さん女の子に弱いもんな。でもだからって手のひら返すの早すぎ。
いいじゃねえか。これで豚書が華やかになると思えば新八に限らずはしゃぎたくもなるだろう。
I wasn't entirely sure I believed that sentiment.
とはいえ、ここでは女性として扱うのは難しそうです。大使として扱うのもまた問題ですし、彼女の処遇は少し考えなければなりませんね。
なら誰かの交渉にすりゃいいだろう。近藤さんとか三男さんとか。
やだな、土方さん。そういう時は言い出しっぺが責任取らなくちゃ。
ああ、そうだな。都市のそばなら安心だ。
そういうことで土方君、彼女のことよろしくお願いしますね。
てめえら勝手に決めてるんじゃねえ。
As I watched their back and forth, some of my earlier relief began to ebb away. And this is how the Shinsengumi had come to look after me. Yeah. In February 1864. Alright. It's a cold day. We got a jacket. Living at the headquarters. And we can't really move anywhere. So,
お前の身柄は新選組預かりとする。が、女として豚書へ置くわけにはいかねえ。新選組にかくまわれている女がいる。そんな話が万一にも広まれば、よくねえ勘繰りをする奴も出てくる。それに、噂を聞いて行動さんを狙っている奴らが、お前まで狙い出すかもしれねえ。もちろん、行動さんが狙われていると確定したわけじゃねえ。
hold on. Oop. No, not skip read. Anyway. Made his orders more palatable.
ですから私たち幹部のほか、情報はそれこそ。
Well, we already skipped a bunch, so let's just get this over with. We got a room, we're staying in it.
あれおかしいな。この子、誰かさんの故障になるんじゃなかったですか？
いいか、掃除。てめえは余計な口出しせずに黙ってろ。
And now we've been here for a week and we're just contemplating how little we can do. We got our sword back, which is a trusty kodachi or a short sword. And we can heal fast. Like really fast. And we keep it a secret from everybody. And we are afraid of blades. Which doesn't really come up that often, I feel. And, you know, soldiers not liking it because somebody just came in, was new, and they got a room. Which is a privilege. And, we're wondering what the fuck do we do now? Hijikata is in Osaka, and talk to someone. Perhaps there would be someone in the inner courtyard to whom I could speak, I thought. I didn't want to be spotted by the soldiers, so I hid for a moment and scanned the area. Oh, good. Things were looking up. The only people in the courtyard were Okita-san and Saito-san. This is a scene we haven't seen before, so I'm gonna go slow with it. Good morning. Good morning, Okita-san. Good morning, Saito-san. Or is it better to say Ohio? They showed no signs of surprise to my approach and turned lazily to greet me.
Ohayo. 明るいような暗いような微妙な顔してるね。
How did you guess?
何か思うところがあるという様子だ。俺たちに用があるなら言うといい。
Well, I didn't want to impose a complaint, but they had asked. I was hoping I could go look for my father soon.
それは無理だ。あんたの護衛に咲く人員は整っていない。
He hadn't exactly left me any room for argument. Is there really nothing you can do? It's not like I want to go very far. Just walking around the city is enough.
僕たちが巡察に出かけるとき、同行してもらうのが一番手っ取り早いかな。
Your rounds? I must have worn a confused expression because Okita-san's eyes narrowed, and he proceeded to warn me.
言っておくけど、巡察って命がけなんだよ。僕たちが下手を打てば死ぬ大使だって出る。老子に殺されたくないなら最低限、自分の身くらい自分で守ってもらわないとね。
Well, I do know a little of swordsmanship. I should be able to protect myself a little. Internally, though, I was frightened by the rounds. The last thing I wanted was to see another person die. I had seen enough of that to last a lifetime. I had to remind myself that fear couldn't rule me. No matter what, I had to find my father. Kyoto may be a dangerous place, but being paralyzed by fear would prevent me from ever finding him.
ならば俺が試してやる。腰のものが飾りではないと証明してみせる。
What?
加減はしてやる。遠慮は無用だ。どこからでも全力で打ち込んでこい。
But...
どうした雪村。その子たちはやはり単なる飾りなのか。
No, of course it's not, and I have taken lessons. I'm not lying. But I can't attack you. If my hand were to slip and I cut or stab you, not only would you be injured, but you could die. Excuse me. You don't have to laugh.
はじめくん相手に殺してしまうかもなんて不安になれる君は文句なしにすごいよ。最高。
Ah, fuck you, Okita. Of course I hadn't thought I could be one of the captains in the Shinsengumi, but still, accidents happen! Even if you are trained or not, accidents still fucking happen. There's still a chance of someone getting hurt. If it's to help someone or to protect myself, I wouldn't think twice to draw my kodachi. But right now, it's to test my skills. So, this is to test my skills, right?
どうやら物分かりはいいみたいだね。君がそれなりに刀の使える人間だって分かれば、僕たちも君の外出を少しは前向きに考えるし。
刃に不安があるのなら、鞘を刀代わりに使うか、峰打ちで打ち込め。
I looked down at my sword. Even with the scabbard at the back of my blade, a misplaced strike could break bones. However, this was the opportunity I waited for. I don't want to miss this chance. I straightened up and looked straight into Saito-san's cold, calm eyes. Let's go! I settled into a fighting position. Saito-san cocked his head slightly to one side and let out a small noise I took to be a laugh. His stance stayed defensively, no signs of fear despite the fact that I was clearly ready to attack. Did he attempt to leave his sword sheath? I stopped the thoughts as it entered my mind. His words were to be trusted. Here I come! As I stepped forward, I let out a yell and lunged. The backside of my blade collided with the shoulder of a defenseless Saito. Or so I thought. In a blink of an eye, his face was only inches from mine, and I could feel the cold steel of his blade. This was the skill of a Shinsengumi captain. My body froze and sweat dripped down my neck. He turned without another word, sheathed his sword, and began to walk away. I then noticed how wildly my heart was beating. What was that?
これ、いい子たちだね。ずいぶん年代物みたいだけど。
I looked over at Okita to see him holding my kodachi. I looked down at my hand where I had expected the sword to be. It was empty. I'm sorry. Thank you for picking up my sword. He nodded and tossed the sword to me. I reached for it, but there was almost no strength left in my hands, and I nearly dropped it. The blow of Saito-san's sword on my own had left my hands numb. That strength seemed almost inhuman.
大丈夫？やっぱり驚いたかな。はじめくんの居合は達人級だからね。
Yes, I suppose I'm okay. But what's... yeah. I felt like a bit of a fool asking, but they seemed to think it was a perfectly legitimate question.
対等状態から抜き打ちの一撃を放つ技だ。抜刀直後の刃が上向いているのはわかるな。
You wear your katana just like my kodachi then.
そうだ。昔の太刀は刃を下に向けて吊るしていたが、今の内刀は腰に刺すために上向きにする。本来であれば、刀身が鞘から抜け切るまで待ち、刀を返して相手に刃を向ける手間がかかる。
And he could have easily taken my head with that blade. Had we faced an actual battle, I would have been dead sooner than I could prepare myself for.
居合は片手で抜き打つことが多いから、結果的に威力が下がって実用性は低いなんて言われることもあるんだけどね。
That's not a problem Saito-san has. It seems like he could easily finish an opponent with a single blow.
もしはじめくんが本気だったら、君の子たちを弾いた後、即座に追撃してとどめを刺してたと思うよ。
The only reason I survived that encounter was because Saito-san had never intended to kill me. A thought that made me shiver. That's Iai then. And from a true master of the art. It left me speechless, trembling from its power. A feeling of honor began to creep and coil itself around my heart. The outside appearance of the Shinsengumi did not reflect their deadliness. It mesmerized me to witness men who could be gentle yet killers. Really? I looked from side to side to Okita-san. He gave me a smile and brought his hands together in polite applause. So much so that he is smiling. Then that means you can take me with you? Right. I had a feeling he was going to say something similar, so I simply nodded in agreement. Oh, you don't need to apologize, Saito-san. It's alright. Saito-san looked at me for a beat, then turned away. I thought perhaps he looked to me with pity. Really? Okita-san smirked, and I couldn't tell if he was kidding or meant it. I turned to look up to the sky, watching the white clouds gently drift apart, perhaps a shy omen. At last I had made some progress in my research. I told myself, however little. The wind had pushed the clouds off Kyoto, and the brilliant blue they'd hidden sparkled above. Time stood still, shadows drifting along my wall. Oh no. Here we are. We just had to wait. We've seen this 2 times in a row. We're fine. Did you hear everything I said? He heard me. He had definitely heard me. I wanted to scream, but before I could open my mouth, Saito-san appeared out from behind a door. Wait, were you here the whole time too? Oh, thank goodness. I'm sorry for screaming like that. True, I didn't say anything bad, but, still. Oh, I was just embarrassed to be caught talking to myself. Saito-san watched me fidgeting and mumbling. His eyes pierced right through me. Oh, no, nothing at all. Saito shrugged shortly before we caught the sound of footsteps approaching us noisily. Heisuke shot through the door. The moment he saw us, however, his face fell. Sorry, Todo-san. I'll be there as soon as I can. He turned to leave, but he halted in his tracks. He pursed his small lips together before speaking.
みんな平助って呼ぶからそれでいいよ。
Are you sure?
年も近いからその方がしっくりするし、あとそのデスマスもやめようぜ。
Alright, I'll do that then, Heisuke.
そうそう、それでいいや。じゃあ早く行こうぜ。
And now we are absolutely skipping through this scene because we've seen it too many times.
ようやく来たか。
おめおま
しん
今日も相変わらずじゃ
ちょっと心配ったんな。じゃあ
毎回こんなんですまないな。
うん。
おいおいバカ
どうぞどうぞ。
んじゃ
ただご飯とか気にしない。
気にしなくて
And we're still skipping.
大坂に
何
あ駆けつけた
Osaka is just a place where bad things happen, apparently.
相当の剣をす
剣刀
薬
平助。
悪か
だ
今これ以上それと
ラ
お前さんは
忘れろ。
To be fair, this is a nighttime scene, and I kinda am getting very tired. We'll let this pass. Looking at the ceilings and having the night end. We are gonna leave there, I feel, because I feel tired and I want a nap. We will be back later, though, with the art stream, because, again, it's the only way that you can get me to work. So we're gonna do that. Y button. Save. We're saving right there. Right there. Holy shit. We're doing that. Alright. So, yeah. We'll be back in maybe 4 hours or so for art stream. We're gonna continue the Hijikata piece for at least an hour, and then we'll go into the work pieces. Because there's a lot. Part 4 is... No, wait. No, we're on part... I don't remember which part we're on. My brain is a scrambled mess. One of the parts, part 3 or part 4 of Ties of Fates, requires a lot of work because there's a lot of fight scenes, and I'd like to at least depict it correctly. Hi! What? Blue, you're late with your tea? We're about to end. Drink tea as much as you drink water. But yeah. 4 hours. I'm gonna go and take a nap and then eat, and then we'll come back. Alright? Bye!